All right, boils and ghouls. So, this movie won the poll that I put up the other night, and I was hoping it would, and I was pretty sure that it was going to win. Now, when it comes to M. Night Shyamalan, however the fuck you say that guy's name, I still don't know to this day. I'm pretty sure it's Shyamalan, that's how it's spelled. M. Night Shyamalan. But if you say it fast, it sounds like Shyamalan, because some people don't pronounce the Y, whatever, there's nothing to do with anything. When it comes to him as a director, now, first of all, I always forget that The Sixth Sense was not his debut film. For some reason, I always think and misremember that The Sixth Sense was his directorial debut. But I was just looking at his filmography real quick to refresh, and yeah, it's not. He did 2 or 3 films before The Sixth Sense. Now, I feel like The Sixth Sense is his masterpiece. I don't think it's a masterpiece of a movie, but I think it's his masterpiece. And I feel like he's never reached that same level ever since. I don't think I've ever done a video on a Shyamalan movie on here. Knock at the Cabin, I did a spoiler free on. So this is the first deep dive into a Shyamalan movie. And you're going to hear Shyamalan, you're going to hear Shyamalan, you're going to hear both that shit throughout this video. Now, the reason I was hoping this won the poll, and some of you know as I've been talking with you guys about it, was the other night a video came on, like autoplay on YouTube, and it was a clip from a podcast, which I will put this video in the description, and I don't know if this theory has been around before them and came up with this, so I can't say give full credit to them for the theory because until I look into that more, but for all intents and purposes, for now, their link is going to be in the description, and of course I'm going to credit all of this talk on the theory to them until I find out if this existed before then. But definitely check the video out, especially after you hear me talking about this theory. There's a theory that they mention that the aliens in this movie are not aliens, that they are indeed demons. Now, when it first came on autoplay, as I said, I'm not a big M. Night Shyamalan fan. I love The Sixth Sense, like I said. Unbreakable's fun, but I never watch it. I haven't seen that movie in 10 plus years. What else does he have? That The Happening's awful, but at least you can have fun watching that movie with Marky Mark, his terrible performance. You can have fun with The Happening. Split, I think, is his best film besides The Sixth Sense. Old wasn't too bad. I quite enjoyed that, actually. I gotta rewatch that. Knock at the Cabin, I thought was alright, but I thought it would have been better as a short. Would have been better as maybe a 45 minute movie, because I feel like you couldn't stretch that premise to a feature-length film. It felt very filler through a lot of it. I did not care for that. Just so I remember all his... The Village is another one that I enjoy. I mean, I love Joaquin Phoenix and Howard daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, is that her name? I always forget her name too. I enjoy that movie, but just like Us from Jordan Peele, the twist at the end, I have a million holes. There's so many holes in that. I have so many questions. Every time I watch that, it makes no sense. The twist is terrible at the end of that movie. And we'll talk about that when we finally get to that film one day. Actually, when I go through his filmography and I look at the movies, Lady in the Water is not terrible. That I haven't seen that in forever either, but that's a pretty good movie. It's not terrible. The Last Airbender is awful. That's the worst of his career there. There and After Earth are the 2 worst Shyamalan films, in my opinion. And then, what else did he do? Devil is great, but he didn't direct Devil. He produced Devil, and a lot of people don't seem to know this. A lot of people mention Devil as as a film that he directed, and he did not direct Devil. He wrote the story for it, and he produced it. Now, story is, for some who don't know, when this is common knowledge for some, who love film, but you never know who's watching. Story is different from screenplay with the dialogue and everything. So he came up with the story for Devil. He didn't write the screenplay, but I think that's an excellent film. Like, I think that's a very good movie, and if that was directed by him, that would be in my top 3-4 Shyamalan films. I really enjoyed Devil. The Visit, I highly enjoy as a decent found footage fan. And then Glass, I didn't like it. I didn't like Glass. It was cool seeing the characters from Unbreakable back, but again, I don't have much emotional investment in Unbreakable, so it wasn't that great. It was great seeing the character from Split again, and I'm blanking on the character's name, but seeing McAvoy again and doing the same just excellent performance and playing all his personalities is great. So now that I really think about it, I'm still not a big fan of his movies. I don't watch them often, but it's not, his filmography is more consistent than I usually remember and think in my mind, if that makes sense. He definitely has a more consistent quality to his films than I give him credit for often. So that's one thing I wanted to say, just talking about him a little bit, because he definitely is a divisive director. There are a lot of people who hate M. Night's movies, and most of them. There are people who adore all his movies for the most part, and there are people who love Last Airbender and the other awful one, After Earth. There are people who love those films. Just like I always say, there's an audience for every movie, just like there's an audience for everything. But back to the podcast. They had the theory that they're not aliens, they're demons. And as I listened, because I haven't watched Signs, I'm about to throw it on here. Haven't watched it in I don't know how many years. And this movie suffers from something that Scream does, even though luckily I hate Scream for the most part, so I don't have to watch those movies and have it ruined. But this movie, one flaw with it, and it's not the movie's fault at all, it's Scary Movie 3's fault, that it's ruined scenes in this film and a lot of horror movies because of just the Scary movies existing and making fun of these films. I'm not going to be able to get through this without referencing it a few times and referencing Scary Movie 3 and talking about Charlie Sheen. All of that's going to come up because it's hysterical. But the more I listened, because at first I was like, I don't know about that. They're very clearly fucking aliens when you look at these things. And the crop circles and all of that. But they go on to explain away almost every aspect of this movie. And I say almost. So this is going to be part discussion on the movie and commentary on the film, while I look out for every little detail to support this theory and to debunk it. And at the end, we'll come to a final conclusion on what I think about this theory of them being demons and not actual aliens. And let me preface that ending conclusion with the fact that on a symbolic level, from everything I heard them say in the podcast on this theory, I already know that it's going to make almost 100% sense. On a symbolic level. On, the actual context in the film, and that they look like aliens and the crop circles and stuff, that I'm going to have to see. And we'll discuss every little detail here. So let's dive into M. Night Shyamalan's Signs from 2002? 2002 is correct. Yes, that's the answer. So for people who haven't seen Signs, which I don't know many nowadays, over 20 years later, who who are horror fans. We got Mel Gibson in here, way before all the Jewish shit that got him in trouble. All of that. We have Joaquin Phoenix, who's just phenomenal in everything. Most things. The Village, man. When we get to that movie, like I said. And then we have, what is it, Rory Culkin? We have Macaulay Culkin and the other brother's younger brother in here. And, I mean, you could tell they have the same face. Plays the son. I forget who plays Bo, the daughter. She's adorable in this. And I've been spelling it like beau, like the French word beau, like for boyfriend or whatever. Beau. It's Beau, B-O. So that's her name. They're at a farmhouse. Mel Gibson is a former priest who lost his faith. And then there's an alien invasion. And they spend, as I recall, the entire film on their farmhouse. They live in a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. They notice crop circles and they start seeing weird activity and eventually aliens. That's all you need to know going into this movie. But again, I don't know many people haven't seen Signs. Now, the first thing to mention with this theory of them being demons, and something to keep in mind as we talk this movie, is that Mel Gibson's character, I forget the name, we'll find out when I turn the movie on, actually 12 minutes into this, he's a priest, like I said, who lost his faith after the death of his wife. Now, there's a reason that Shyamalan wrote him as a priest. If you look at this movie, and this is a quote from the video, if you look at this movie from a viewpoint, looking at it as a film about faith, then all of this theory falls into place. And that's where it starts, is that Mel Gibson's character is someone who lost his faith, and then by the end of the film, he gets his faith back because of the experiences and events that happened in this movie. Now, of course, in this movie, we also have, like in every Shyamalan film, M. Night Shyamalan making his cameo appearance, which is more than a cameo in this movie. He has a whole character, and he plays into the plot, since he was the one who accidentally killed Mel Gibson's character's wife in this. So he shows a lot of guilt and remorse throughout this movie, again, which are themes that play into faith, in the main theme of this movie. And the guilt that M. Night's character, I think it's Ray or something like that, who the fuck cares with M. Night? That's another thing I don't like about M. Night. Sure, many directors, a lot of them have cameos in their films. That's fine. But because the point is, we get it. We know you love Hitchcock. Like, we get it, M. Night. We know you're a Hitchcock fanatic. You don't have to put in Hitchcockian cameos in every movie that you do. That's the only thing I think of when I see him make a cameo or have a role in his own movie, is Alfred Hitchcock is the first thing that comes to mind, because you know how big of a fan he is. Now, the thing that I thought of right off the bat upon hearing this theory that might, be a counter argument to it, is the crop circles, which of course we know are always associated with aliens. Then upon thinking about it and seeing the opening scene here, where Graham is Mel Gibson's character is Graham, and I forget Joaquin Phoenix is still, but Morgan is Rory Culkin. They go out in the back of their farmhouse, and they're looking for the son, Morgan, who has asthma. And they come across the crop circle. Right before Graham sees it himself, Morgan says the line, "I think God did it." So it's already making a little bit of sense, and then I started thinking more about it. All right, it's a crop circle. What do we see in a lot of, pretty much all, ghost and demonic possession movies, poltergeist films? We see them, the spirits, fucking with stuff around the house and just doing weird stuff, stacking chairs. They're on a farm. Is it outside of the realm of possibility that this is just the demons messing around, like in their early presence, if that makes sense? To me, you can explain it away that way. Just, I mean, stacking chairs versus bending corn in a crop circle. And in this universe in the movie, maybe demons are the cause of crop circles. Like, I'm reaching, as I said, for as many ways to defend this premise and this way of looking at the movie, I should say. But I'm definitely going to counter it and try to debunk it as much as possible. And as a skeptic, that's how I am. I've said many times, I'm a skeptical believer. I want to believe, I do believe in aliens, that's one thing. But I look at things very skeptically. So let's see if more of this holds up. We have Graham as a former priest. He lost his faith. We have the crop circle, which I just explained away in the best way that I can think of at the moment. There might be some more thoughts that pop in my head. There always is. So there's no reason they won't. Then we have Bo, the daughter. Now, the biggest criticism I always hear with this film is how stupid the whole way that the aliens are defeated in this movie with just water. That water seems to just disintegrate these things, or they melt, or I forget. But Bo's whole character is essential to this demon theory and not being aliens, because Graham refers to Bo, his daughter, as an angel. That when she was born, she was like an angel. That explains everything with the water. Almost everything. There's one thing I can think of that throws a wrench in this, but we'll get there. But she's referenced as an angel. So all the water, the glass of water she leaves around the house is holy water. That's what it's supposed to be, that she's blessing the farmhouse. So it mostly holds water, pun intended, for everything to do with Bo. And then later on, when we see the flashback of Graham's wife after M. Night killed the shit out of her. We were saying in his stream a little bit earlier, but is the bottom half okay? Charlie Sheen kills it. It's Scary Movie 3. That is hysterical, that scene. But we see that flashback, and she gives the premonition. She has a premonition or a vision, and she says exactly what's going to happen, and that's how the movie ends. It's with, swing away, Merrill. That's it. The quote made it come into my head, his name. Swing away, Merrill. And that's exactly what he does at the end. So she foresaw this, what plays more into the whole faith angle. So a lot of this theory really has some credibility to it. Alright, so it was bothering me that I couldn't remember the channel and the name of the video, even though I said I will put it in the description, but I at least want to give a shout out here in the video to them. They are the Cosmic Chronicles podcast, and the name of the video is What Everyone Misses About Signs, Why Signs is Actually Amazing. So, like I said, I'll have probably even a thing pop up here if I feel like, if I'm not too lazy, but it'll definitely be in the description, and I urge you to check it out. Either go there first, come back here, or watch this, go there. But if you're a fan of this movie especially, definitely go over there, give them a subscribe. I did. I think they got some cool content over there, so definitely check out Cosmic Chronicles podcast, and definitely give them a sub. Alright, so another thing I just noticed, so we have the scene with Morgan and Bo after they see that one of their dogs is sick, and Bo is giving water to the dog, again playing into her being an angel, that this is supposed to be, blessed water, holy water, trying to heal the dog here. Now I forget what happens to this dog. He could easily get mauled by one of these aliens / demons. I don't remember, but more so, we know from anyone who has researched or looked into the paranormal or anything in any capacity that animals can detect weirdness much sooner than human beings, and dogs especially. Dogs know when something's wrong, and dogs, cats, stuff. When any demonic possession movie you see, ghost film, that has an animal in it, they're acting spooked and weird before anybody in the house knows anything weird's going on. So just the fact that the dog is affected first here, that also can play into this being a demonic, I don't want to say possession since no one gets possessed here, but a demonic infestation. Now, there's something obviously that argues that with the fact that there's a broadcast on TV showing these things walking around in other countries. They have, I'm pretty sure they say there's sightings in like India and stuff. So this is worldwide now that I'm thinking out loud. But it could just be a demon invasion. It could be an interdimensional beings that, for some reason, at this time in history, in this movie, decided to cross over and start fucking with human beings. So you can still make sense of it so far with everything that I've seen in the first 20-25 minutes of the movie. And then there's more dialogue. Now, again, you can look at this from both ways. The alien standpoint, that is what everybody sees when they first watch this movie. Or you can look at a lot of the dialogue and stuff that happens from the demonic aspect. We have the sheriff who shows up looking at the crop circles, and she gives some dialogue to Graham saying that the day before, she was at somebody else's farm, and there was nothing weird that he reported that happened. And then he asks why she went over to the farm. And she says more that leads credence to what I was saying about animals detecting weirdness. She was saying that a lot of the animals over there have been acting weird lately and acting pretty spooked, and some of them have been acting violent. So, again, going back to animals being able to detect weirdness, yeah, they would just as likely be able to detect the aliens coming as they would demons. So it works on both sides, that aspect, the whole thing with the animals. Now, I also just want to repeat, and I will probably one more time a little later, just for people who come in later in the premiere, this whole demon theory is not my theory. This is something I heard the other night on a video. Again, a little plug for them. It's the Cosmic Chronicles podcast, and it's a whole video, 7 minutes or so, a clip from a podcast of theirs discussing this whole theory. So I heard it, and now I am dissecting every bit of this movie to see if it holds water, pun intended again. But I mean, that's the go-to term for something like that. So, not my theory. Did not come up with a single thing of this. I haven't seen this movie in a long while. So remember what I said about not remembering what happens to that dog? Yeah, he's dead as shit like 15 minutes into this movie. They find him dead. Well, Graham and the detective, because when Bo gave the water to this dog, he started acting really violent and growling at her. And then when they stumble upon Morgan and the dead dog, he says that he fell on top of him. He was trying to kill Bo, so he killed the dog, right? Because there's like a piece of wood going through the dog. So I'm guessing it tried to attack Bo, and he had to kill his dog, right? That's how I always took this. But what does that mean? The dog's reaction to the water? Again, could it be like I said that? With Bo's whole thing, that water, and she says right in that scene that it's contaminated. That kind of throws a little wrench, but then again, you can explain it away as it's contaminated by evil forces. It's been contaminated by the demons that are starting to make their presence known. So again, that still holds up too. All right, let me just say this: it's an adorable scene, and it's heartbreaking when Graham, in the middle of the night, goes, and that's where she gives the line, Bo, to him, saying that the water by her bed is old when she asks for water. And he sits down with her on her bed. And she comes out with the question, and this just shows how observant kids are, man. I mean, I forget how old she is in this movie, but she's young. But she picks up on it, and she hears, and she says to her father, well, why do you talk to Mom when you're alone all the time? And he says, it makes me feel better. And she says, does she ever answer back? And he says, no. And then her line, man, it's heartbreaking. It's adorable when she says, she never answers me either. Oh, like, I don't know, that got me this time for some reason. What an ironic line from Graham just coming out of Mel Gibson's mouth when they have the first sighting of the alien. After sitting on Bo's bed, Graham sees the alien on the rooftop next door. And they think that it's the son of the neighbor or something. And Mel Gibson and Merrill have this plan that Merrill comes up with that we're gonna run outside, we're gonna act crazy, screaming, let them shit their pants, and we both go in the opposite directions. We trap them, when we meet them on the other side, and we meet each other. And then Mel Gibson comes out and says, "It doesn't sound natural when I curse." Coming from Gibson, that's just funny to hear. Now, on the look of the aliens here, they touch on this in this theory about them being demons. That the aliens in this movie are first of all, there's no alien technology in this movie. You don't see flying saucers. You see lights in the sky, which in the theory video they explain as the presence of God or angels. It makes sense. It fits the theory. I don't know if I feel 100% on board with that, but it does fit the theory, at least to make it not completely, being able to throw this theory out right out the window. So it does make sense. But the design of the aliens, they bring up a point that the aliens are very angry looking in this film. That they look pissed, and they do. The aliens are very weirdly depicted in this movie. They're not like the usual aliens that we see in both, the paranormal research community or in movies. And especially the Greys that we always see. They have no emotions, they go on to say. All of this makes sense. The aliens in this movie, they look furious. There's a line they say in there that's great in that video. She's like, why is an alien gotta have so much hate? Something like that. I forgot it, but it's great. It's hilarious. But that you could see it in their faces in this movie. They're not shot and they don't look like aliens that we're used to. They look, I guess demonic's the best word, he uses. They look demonic. They look like they're filled with rage. So even the design of the aliens, it plays into the theory pretty well. That these could be demons. These can be or interdimensional spirits or anything like that. Which, you can take that way back to the theory that demons in olden times in ancient civilizations and since the beginning of history, if you believe in this type of stuff like aliens, that demons were just a way to explain aliens and interdimensional beings. So it all does. Did I just say interdimensional beings? Beings, not beans. Not beans from another dimension that you can eat. Beings. Let's get on track again. It works. All the design and aspects of the aliens here works for the demon theory. Alright, like I said, I'm not fully on board yet. I'm being convinced very heavily because we even get some tropes and shots in here that we see in so many haunting movies and ghost films. When they're planning their, attack on what they think is the neighbor's son until Merrill notices, he leaped onto the roof. And he says, are you sure this is Lionel's son? So it ends up running into the cornfield, and the swing, it knocks the swing, and you see the swing going back and forth. That's something we see in dozens, if not hundreds, of ghost films and poltergeist movies. It's the famous shot of a swing going back and forth, but there's nothing on it. That plays into it too. And then right after that, you see a little ruffle in the cornfield that it ran into. Again, could just be these demonic entities, which, alright, let's say this. I'm more willing to accept this theory. I don't know if this is probably what they had in mind with their theory. that these aren't like your typical demons. These are actual demonic entities, so they physically exist here, which explains how they can move around and stuff, and how they, maybe it explains how they were caught on the news report, and that they were sighted on camera. Usually you don't see that in movies. Usually demons, ghosts, and stuff usually aren't picked up on any type of footage or anything like that. But neither are aliens. So, so of course I'm going back and forth on this, but this is dissecting a theory here. This is trying to see if this holds up. And it's really convincing me. Now that we're entering like the second act of this movie, it's really starting to convince me that maybe M. Night had this in his mind writing this. That, yeah, it may be an alien movie at the surface, but he probably had a deeper meaning to it, which I'm sure he has, and he does with pretty much all his movies. Was it exactly this? That these are supposed to be representations of and symbolic for demons and not actual aliens? I have no idea. I don't know. I couldn't even take a guess. Maybe, maybe not. I'm leaning towards maybe not, even though the film is very centered around faith and restoring it and losing it and all that. I love the scene when Bo's watching Dexter's Laboratory. There'll be bloopers on TV, then Graham comes in. Where else would she be watching it? And she has the 3 glasses of water that's on top of the TV, and Graham comes in. He says, "What's wrong with this one?" She has a hair in it. "This one's dusty." Then the line when she says Morgan took a sip and his amoebas are in it. That's a great line. Now, Merrill does at least stand up for how stupid this deputy or sheriff, I forget if she's the sheriff or not, says when she's trying to sit down with them and figure out the prior night and what happened. She says that Romanian dancers and acrobats or whatever, they could jump clean over her and stuff. And he fights back and says, "Listen, lady, we didn't have a Romanian acrobat, whatever the term is, jumping on top of our house in our yard last night." I love that he fights back on that, because if they just let her say that theory and they didn't have any rebuttal, I'd be pissed every time I watch this scene, because what type of stupid idiot is this deputy? That's it. He says a female Scandinavian Olympian. That's her theory. Alright, now this is where we get the first broadcast, and where they mention the crop circles that are showing up worldwide, and they specifically show India, and they show crop circles that are showing up at an alarming rate, and that there's no way that people could be doing this in such a short amount of time, and that this is either one of the most elaborate hoaxes in history, or this is for real. Now again, I mean, this is the part of this theory of them being demons that I have to suspend a little bit of disbelief for. One, like I said, the fact that this is taking place all around the world. 2, that they're crop circles, which are so often associated with aliens. But going back to what I said in ancient times, and since the beginning of time in humanity, demons could have always been misunderstood, and that was their explanation for aliens or interdimensional beings, whatever you want to call it back in the day. They referred to it as demons. I mean, religion was huge. I mean, it's not like it is today. It was much bigger back then, especially in the ancient civilization. So it makes sense, and it still can make this theory work. It's just a part of it that I have to suspend a little bit more disbelief for than I do for a lot of the other aspects, like the design of the aliens and everything surrounding Bo being an angel and the water. All of that I can get right on board with. The newscast, and like I said, I don't remember much, but when we see the actual aliens / whatever they are on the actual news, when it passes the alleyway and stuff, that's when I'm really interested to see and dissect that little scene there. Now, this is a quick scene and one of the few that we see them leave the farmhouse for a bit. And there's another interesting little detail thrown in here where Morgan asks Graham, his father, to turn on the radio. And he turns it on very quick, and the news reporter says something to the effect of that these are signs to be taken from up above. Again, that holds true to this theory, that signs from up above, God, heaven, it's the angels, which they refer to the lights that we see in the sky as opposed to UFOs. So that's a little detail that's thrown in here, and then he shuts it right off, and he says no radio either, like nothing, just for a little bit till this craziness is sorted out and what's going on in the world. I think they said there's been 18 crop circles in the last 72 hours popping up all over India. So this is just on every channel, as Bo says. But that line from the newscaster on the car radio, that also plays into the theory very, very well. That's right, we have Ted Sutton in here, who plays the Army general, whatever he is, that Merrill goes to see. And Merrill had his little 15 minutes of fame in minor league baseball, and he struck out and ruined his whole career like a dumbass. But he gets to redeem himself, helping to save the world. So can't go too hard on the guy. Now we come to the baby monitor, which we see throughout the rest of this movie. Morgan finds Bo's baby monitor in the basement, and that's what picks up some alien frequency in this movie.
Voices. Did you hear that? Not English, though.
Probably picking up another baby monitor. That's right.
Now, in the theory video, they go on to explain this, and it makes a lot of sense. We see this, like a lot of these things, in so many ghost movies, is sounds being picked up on radios, being picked up on baby monitors. We've seen that so many times. That's a cliche at this point. In ghost films, that these are spirits that are able to interrupt frequencies, and sometimes you hear static or you hear a voice and stuff. So we've seen this many times. So that absolutely makes sense for me. That's something I can absolutely jump right on board with. Everything explaining the baby monitor and the alien frequencies, all of that can be explained away just as easily as being demonic entities that are interrupting signals or sending signals out. Or they're just in some way, whatever, if they're made of electricity and they have so much energy and stuff, it's their energy, whatever it is, where I'm getting at, affects the fucking monitor. Okay, can we move on to the next point? And then they're at the diner eating, and we see M. Night for the first time, and no dialogue or anything, just a stare. They do see each other, and he gets in his car and drives away. Now, after the scene with the baby monitor, which is hilarious, how in the car Merrill is explaining to Morgan how all of this is nerds that have been doing this forever, that they want to feel special, so they go out and they make codes with each other, they research mythology, and then they put on these hoaxes. They were doing it 25 years ago, they're doing it again now, it's all a scam. Then the baby monitor starts having the frequency go off, and then you hear the voices. As he goes, Graham, to hand the baby monitor over to Merrill, the kids say stop, because they'll interrupt the frequency, and he's after all that bullshit of him saying in the car that this is all nerds, none of it's real, and all of that. He also objects.
I'm letting go now.
No, Dad! Don't do it!
You'll lose the signal.
Now he's getting obsessed with it. Love that. All of that is written great, the dialogue in that scene. Okay, this is where the theory hits a wall for me. They finally turn the TV on. He says, all right, he gives in, let's turn on the TV. And they throw it on, and then we see another broadcast, and we see all the lights in the sky, which very obviously look like spacecrafts. They're not just lights. Now, I know there's a scene later on where they are just like orbs in the sky and lights. That I can subscribe to, that angel theory. But they mention specifically on this broadcast that U.S. officials, the military and stuff, and they entered Mexico City airspace. So these are actual crafts that exist there.
Mexico City officials, as well as U.S. officials, have confirmed that these are not aircraft from either government's air force. The first sighting was made by an Air Mexico 747 en route from Mazatlan to New York, as the unidentified crafts entered Mexico City airspace. They were not detected by radar by either country.
So they knew when these unidentified, and they refer to them specifically as crafts, they knew exactly when it entered Mexico City and the airspace there. So I don't know. That throws a decent sized wrench into this. But as we go on, let's see if I can maybe explain it away to fit the theory in my mind. If any thoughts pop in, there's still a ton of questions I have with this, like regarding to this part of it. Now, this is more great dialogue written here, and they go on to quote Graham's character in the video on this theory, where he's talking on the couch late at night with Merrill, and it's just the two of them. They're watching the TV. And Merrill asks him and says, "Do you think this is the end of the world?" And he responds, "Yes." And again, losing his faith and everything. Merrill says, "Can you just comfort me like you used to? Can you be the way you used to be?" Which, of course, he can't until he experiences what he experiences and sees what he sees in the rest of this film and the events that take place. But he does pretty much break down people into two groups in the dialogue, and it makes sense for having two ways of looking at this movie.
People break down into two groups. When they experience something lucky, group number one sees it as more than luck, more than coincidence. They see it as a sign, evidence that there is someone up there watching out for them. I'm sure the people in group number two are looking at those 14 lights in a very suspicious way. For them, this situation is a 50-50. Could be bad, could be good. But deep down, they feel that whatever happens, they're on their own.
Something from above as a sign. Someone looking down, for them, looking out for them or down on them from above. So all of this fits with the angel theory, with the demon theory, with this being a tale of which it obviously is, whether you look at it from the alien standpoint or the demon standpoint. This is primarily a movie about faith. So every reference to up above or the sky, except for, like I said, with the crafts, that's the one wrench so far. But every other reference to God or, things from above or signs, all of that plays very well into this whole theory on the aliens being demons. Now, there is something here that I picked up on. I mean, you can't not, but it's, a thought that I had going off of this. We see a scene earlier where, I forget where they are, not the pharmacy, in another store they go to when they go out for a little bit. And there's this old man who works there, and he's watching the TV, and he's like, "I counted 12 soda commercials." Then we see a 13th one that comes on, and we see the soda commercial. So there's some attention being brought to soda. Now, I'm taking this and looking into that as, obviously it plays into the water being, the solution to the alien problem, or quote-unquote aliens. So the soda is being shown as, it's good, it's delicious, but it's bad for you. It's not good. The water is what's good. The water is what will save humanity. That's my only real take on it. I don't know if there's a deeper meaning to it. I don't know what that it would have to do with demons or anything like that, except for tying back into everything with the water with Bo. Just thought it was interesting how they actually make it a point to focus on the soda commercials twice in this movie. All right, remember very early on when I said there is one thing that I specifically remember in this movie that throws, punches back at this theory, for lack of better terms? On the news the next morning, Merrill's fully engrossed and he's watching the newscast. And he's updating Graham on these interesting developments, as he says. And they specifically say on the news, well, this is what he heard on the news. He's relaying it to Graham. But they said that a bird flew across the sky, hit something, stopped dead air, and fell to the ground. So that means there's something physically there. Because he said that they're gone, but they're not gone. So there's some type of cloaking device that they're using on their crafts. So this kind of really fights against that theory, where they say that there's no alien technology in this movie. There's not much. That's correct. But this is something to the contrary of that. This totally conflicts that. There's definitely a physical object, a craft there in the air that a bird flew into and fell to his fucking death. So, like I said, at the end we'll reach an actual conclusion how I feel about this, but as you can see, there are a lot of things that are piling up on the side of this theory, but there are a few things that are absolutely fighting against it. And I mean, of course, talking about this movie, how can you not mention the tinfoil hats that they wear, the kids first, then they're all wearing them later on. I mean, that's just a great touch. All right, here's another thing that plays more into the alien, premise and story that is on the surface here. They're looking through the book that Morgan has, that was written by a scientist, he says, and it's all about aliens. And of course, these are just this guy's theories who wrote this book. So this doesn't discredit everything of this theory. But they just had the conversation, Merrill and Graham giving his opinion, that he says, nobody's watching out for us, Merrill. Like, we're all on our own. And this again plays into him losing all his faith after the death of his wife, which we see the flashback of. And as soon as I saw that scene, I busted out laughing. That's the one scene that was ruined in this movie. Like, the most. Absolutely. And it's terrible, because it's supposed to be the most, heart-wrenching scene of this movie, is seeing how his wife died and everything, and their last words and together, and him saying, getting the message and the premonition from her, or whatever you want to call it, the vision of tell Merrill to swing away. So it's supposed to hit hard emotionally. Scary Movie 3, man. It fucked all of that up. But they're looking through the book, and after that whole conversation saying there are no coincidences and stuff, and all that talk, they see in the book a picture of a farmhouse with a craft that's obviously a UFO that's shining a light on their house, or what looks like their house. And they say same windows and everything. Now, if you're to take what Graham was saying to Merrill as a theme in this movie and foreshadowing that there are no coincidences, then that means this is supposed to be their fate. This is Merrill's fate, we know for sure, is, to swing away and to beat the fuck out of that alien with his baseball bat. That was his destiny. So it seems like they were destined to be a major part of this invasion of whatever they are. So I'm to take it that this drawing that looks like their house is their house. It's supposed to be their house. This is their destiny. And we have a UFO clear as day hanging out their house in the air. So that's something else that fights against this theory. So it's really starting to build up. I'd say we're still more on the side that the theory holds up pretty well. But there's another thing I just remembered that really might throw a wrench in here and end this whole theory for the end. Then we get the scene with M. Night Ray, is his name, with his whole conversation and trying to relieve and get all the guilt that he has off his mind, off his shoulders, off his heart. This guy, I usually, like I said, I don't care for seeing M. Night in his films. He gives a decent performance here. I think he's a nothing actor. He's not a great actor at all. Most of the time, I don't like his performances if he has a role like this, like a small role in his films. But I do like how he portrays Ray here, and you can just see how guilt-ridden this guy is. That he's not a bad guy in any way. And he specifically mentions a line which goes right back to what I was saying about there's no coincidences, where he's recounting that night and he said he didn't sleep well and there was no one on the road, and it just seemed like it was meant to be. That 10-15 seconds that he passed Gibson's wife on the road, it could have been any other time, but it happened to be right then that it was meant to be. So that plays more into the whole there are no coincidences, this is their destinies. It plays into the book with the drawing of the house. So this is more things to keep in mind as we get near the end here. So let's take a minute just to talk about Graham as a character here. I think it's very saying to his personality and shows the type of person he is, and also shows that he still wants to believe. He still has his faith deep down. He's just burying it with the death of his wife, and just why would this happen if there's a God up there looking down for us? So I get all of that, and it adds a lot to his character. The fact that this guy can go up and have a civil conversation with the man who killed his wife. Now, of course, it's an accident. And this guy, like I said, Ray is a very well-meaning, nice guy, he seems. And it seems like, and I'm pretty sure they've known each other for like most of their lives. So he knew him. I just think it's a nice detail he threw in here. This whole conversation. And that he said that, I know what I've done to you. I made you question your faith, and I'm truly sorry for what I've done to you and to yours. And he says, all right, and he gets teary-eyed, yeah. But the fact that he even threw that in here and made him able to have that conversation. Now, I know it's very integral to the plot. But he didn't have to write it this way. He could have written in any other way to get this information to us without having Graham be able to be so kind and listening and stuff. Yeah, he's a reverend. He's an ex-reverend and stuff. He's so used to listening to confessions. He even gives one to the girl at the pharmacy because she's terrified of what's going on. Even though he says, I'm not a reverend anymore for 6 months. He still takes that time. So it speaks a lot to his character as a person, and just that he still has that faith buried down deep. And it takes this whole event to really bring it back to the surface and fully reinstore it. So I love his character in this movie. Now, there's a line here right before Ray leaves. That's another thing that I have a problem with the theory. Ray says that he's headed down to the lake, because all the crop circles, they seem to be around the crops, all these beings, whatever. And he says that, I don't think they like water. And we find out in the end, yeah, they don't. They friggin' die. And the whole thing, why would they come to a planet that's filled with water if that's what kills them? That's why none of that ending ever made sense, and why people think it's stupid. So the whole water being blessed thing does answer that. It makes a lot of sense. But if he's going down to the lake, and yes, he does say this he doesn't know for sure. He's very uncertain, Ray's character, whether, the water does hurt them. That's just his thoughts and his theory. He even has it on his face when he says, I don't think they like the water. And then he looks down, and you can tell that he's thinking, and in that his mind's racing. So that doesn't mean anything. That's just his theory. But then we find out, and this is mentioned in the video, that in Jerusalem or so in the Middle East, somewhere in the Middle East, that they found a solution for the problem, an ancient solution. It makes sense with that being holy water. Holy water has been around since religion, forever. So that does hold up. But if Ray is right here, and I'm pretty sure they say that, like, any water starts destroying these creatures at the end of this movie. If the lake water would affect them, Bo didn't bless the lake. What, did she go over and she blessed the whole lake? That's where I have a big issue. That's probably the biggest issue with this theory. how did that lake get blessed? How did the water around, now when they do mention that the ancient, solution, taking it as holy water, yes, that makes sense in that area. That information spread, and I guess maybe they were using holy water. There's no way that Bodo, as the angel she's supposed to be, went around and blessed anything outside of that house. So that's an issue that I have with this theory. Probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest issue. All right, now we see Merrill looking at the news, and this is where we see the alien beings for the first time, or one of them, with the video from, I forget where, South America somewhere, and we see the alien, which again, this is ruined by Scary Movie 3 too.
Disturbing home video tonight from a ranch outside Sydney, Australia. Watch very carefully now. There it is. Let's see that again. Very, very disturbing. Let's see that again.
That's great. But when you see it here, now, this has nothing to do with debating the theory, what I'm about to say, but it's more of a testament that these aliens are kind of stupid, or it was written not that well. They just had the prior newscast saying that they're gone, but they're not really gone, and that they have these cloaking devices on their crafts to hide themselves. So what the fuck are they doing just walking casually around South America and India, that they're allowing themselves to just be filmed on camera and they're just walking the streets? Yeah, he's out there walking the streets. So that's just more of a testament that these are dumb aliens trying to hide their crafts, but yet they're walking around in public. Again, nothing to do with the demon thing. This has nothing to do with it. And the fact of them being picked up on camera and we seeing them could have just as much to do with them being demons. That they're caught on camera, even though we don't see it often. We don't know how the hell demons work, if they exist. So all of that still plays into the theory fine. But we need smarter aliens around. Then we have the scene where Graham goes over to Ray's house after the last thing he says to him is, don't go in my pantry, I got one of those things trapped in there, then just puts it in drive and takes right off. What great dramatic timing M. Night had to write into his character there. So he goes over to the house, and this is another thing they bring up in this theory. The aliens can't open doors in this movie, and we see that in a lot of ghost movies and stuff. And I mean, if these guys ever see this video, I'm not, trying to question how big of a movie fan or horror fan specifically you guys are or anything like that. But there's a decent amount of, there's a lot of ghost movies and demonic possession movies that maybe not in their physical form. We see doors being opened and slammed all the time. So, that whole they can't open doors thing, leading credence to them being demons, that doesn't work for me at all. So but it's a minor thing in this whole theory. But that's just a neat little maybe detail that could play into things, but I don't see it as that at all. I just think that they're dumb aliens again. Like, they can't open fucking doors, but they got spacecrafts. The automatic doors, they can't figure out to twist their hand? Come on, are you kidding me? And all their, who knows how many hundreds or even thousands of years of civilization, however long these things have been around, they figured out the technology to space travel. They haven't figured out how to twist their arm a little bit, twist their hand a bit, get that knob open. I can't. I just, not even with the theory, just the movie itself, I can't with that. That is too stupid. I don't know why he wrote that in here. Probably just for that scene. And for him to put the knife under the door, and then we get that cool little reflection jump scare, I guess you can call it. That's the only reason the door thing is a thing, in my opinion, in this movie. Also, they can't open a simple door or just break down a door, but yet they can jump 10 feet up onto a house like a Scandinavian Olympian. So they start boarding the house up because they have a vote to stay here at the farmhouse. And that way they're all together and they can ride out this invasion. I do like, it's a very small detail, but I like the shot and the cut when they put the final board on the window, so you see the board come up to the camera like that, and then it cuts to the next scene. It's a very small thing, but I like how it was edited. I like that little cut. Another thing with these aliens, Morgan says after they go in the basement, they barricade themselves in there. Graham says, let's put something up against the door to block the door. And Morgan says that they can read our thoughts. They'll know our secret thoughts. So these things could read your minds. If they can read your minds, they can't read your mind on how to open a doorknob and figure it out that way. I know I'm overanalyzing the hell out of it, but it's really annoying me on this watch of how dumb these aliens are, whatever the hell these things are. Now, another thing that's mentioned in this video with this theory is that at the end here in the basement when they're getting attacked and one of the aliens through the vent grabs Morgan, that the reason they go after the kid is because we know from demonology and the paranormal that innocence is what these beings crave, that they want the souls of the innocent. It makes sense, it fits the theory, but I feel it's reaching a bit. I feel like not to look that deep into it. They needed a jump scare here, or they just needed someone to get attacked, show the alien a bit, and Morgan was the one. Like, that's all I see in it. I don't see anything deeper than that. Also, I think it was written in there just as a way, because we have seen since the beginning that Morgan has asthma. We've seen him have, not an asthma attack, but almost, when the dog dies, when he had to kill the dog. So we see him use the inhaler a few times. So just for that foreshadowing, that's why this happens also. So he can have his asthma attack in the basement and have his father comforting him, and it'll pass. That's the only reason all of that's in here. Like I said, I can't look any deeper into the whole child innocent. Okay, so the exact quote about the Middle East is, on the newscast, they say that 3 cities in the Middle East have found a primitive method of dealing with the situation. We have no further details at this time. So that's the exact words that they use. Not ancient, so it's primitive method. Same fucking basic thing. But 3 cities found them. Now you can look at that, I guess, as, like Jerusalem. I'm not big on my geography over there, or religion, but it makes sense. It turns out to be water, so that's what I mean. That's where it makes me lean more towards the theory that it's holy water, that it's blessed water. But then it goes back to counter-argue that is, how is all the water on the planet blessed and able to, and kill this whole invasion off? So I don't know still. Then, of course, we have the ending with the famous
"Swing away, Merrill,"
which I get it. He was a baseball pro, but he also had the strikeout record too. I get it. Get a goddamn shotgun and blow this thing away. Are you serious? Just swinging at it with a baseball bat because you were a minor league baseball player? You couldn't even get to the majors, and he's swinging that. I don't know how I feel. I never knew how I felt about this ending. Both with the water, because then the water, spills off the table onto the alien, and it melts his skin. And then he gets the shit beat out of him by Merrill with the bat, which is still ridiculous to me. They live in a farmhouse in Pennsylvania, in the middle of nowhere. They don't have a fucking shotgun. They don't have a gun of any sort. Living in the middle of nowhere like that. That they can't blast this thing away instead of having to go physical combat up against a creature that you have no idea what it's capable of. None of that makes sense to me. But then we see the water destroy them, and then at the end we see Mel Gibson put on his priest outfit for lack of knowledge and better term on it, and it ends. So let's dissect this theory quick. Let's go over the things that we've pointed out. We have Bo being the supposed angel and blessing the water. We have the lights in the sky that could be taken as angels. Now, even the crafts, even though I have a little bit of a problem with the crafts being called crafts and then having the cloaking devices that the bird flew into, I have an issue there. The lights themselves, sure, you can interpret that as angels. You can even, if you look at this symbolically, then it all can make sense. All of it can. Most of it. I'd say like 90%. It's a very interesting theory. I mean, it's the whole reason I did this video. It's the whole reason I wanted to rewatch this movie, is because of this theory. So, it's very interesting. It's very intriguing. And a lot of it makes a lot of sense. I don't fully subscribe to it. I'm sorry, guys. I can't fully subscribe to it. This is an alien movie. This is an alien invasion. These are aliens. I mean, of course, you're welcome to take it in any way. I mean, that's the beauty of movies and art in general, is anyone can interpret it in their own way. So, of course, you can look at it as these things are demons. But from the things of the water around the world, this is a worldwide invasion. We hear this many times. Yeah, a lot of it takes place in India and the Middle East. I wouldn't look too deep into that as it being like the ancient or primitive method that they found. I think just, M. Night Shyamalan is Indian. So that's why there's the emphasis on India. I wouldn't look any more deeply into that. Now, she's not able to bless all that water. So that's another thing that hurts this theory. The bird, though, with the cloaking device is a huge thing. So there's a decent amount of things in this that just I can't jump on board fully at this point. Now, like, I'm sure as I edit this and and as a few days go on, if I reflect on it, there might be things that come into my mind that make me say, okay, actually, this is something maybe I can explain this away, or explain this away to work with this theory. It's just not, I'm not 100% there. But I do want to give a big thanks to the guys at the Cosmic Chronicles podcast for making that video and for making it to, my random watches and videos that pop up, and that I was able to see it, because it was a very interesting video. Like I said, it is in the description. Definitely check it out. If all of this sounded very interesting, I mean, we dove a lot deeper into it. It's just a 7-minute video, but pretty sure I touched on everything that they do in there. But just for them being the source of me having this theory presented to me, absolutely, please go over to their channel, subscribe, and show some support for sure. But that's Signs from 2002, M. Night Shyamalan. It's a good movie. Like, this is middle tier for me for Shyamalan. I probably won't watch this movie again for another 5-10 years. It's just not a film I throw on often. But because of the interest and the intrigue I had upon watching that video and hearing that theory, I had to throw it on. I had to talk about it, and I'm glad we did. So, next video, I'll put a poll up. It's probably going to be like the second or third place winners for the poll that Signs was on, which I know Pulse was one of them. I don't even remember which movies I put up, but Pulse might be the next one, because God, I love Pulse, or Cairo, however you say it. One of, definitely in my top 10 Japanese horror films, with one of the creepiest friggin' ghost scenes ever in a movie. So, look forward to that one next. We got a few more things to look forward to. I'm waiting to hear back for some interviews. Chris Stew from Late Night with the Devil is going to be coming on in the near future. He's going to let me know in a few weeks when his schedule slows down, and then we're going to figure out a time, and we'll have the great Chris Stew, Facel. I think that's how you say his name, Facel. If I say it wrong, buddy, I don't think you'll see this, but I'll have it right by that time. And a few more that I'm waiting to hear back on and make dates with, so I will keep you guys updated. The next Director Dive episode, which is a series I just started recently, a month and a half ago. First episode was on Mario Bava. It's a whole little mini documentary on his career and his films, plus my top 10 Bava films. So episode 2 of Director Dive is going to be George A. Romero. So I'm hoping and planning to have that out by the end of the month, because I'm going to go through and rewatch all Romero's films to prepare for this, and just try to make it even better than the Mario Bava doc, which I'm proud of that. I really liked how that came out, that Bava video. So if you're a Bava fan, if you haven't seen it, check it out if you're interested. We got that. We have some streams. I have some collaborations with Matt, my buddy at Pugwall, few other, and Larry. We're going to be watching TerrorVision. Larry, congrats again on Horror YouTuber of the Month at the Horror Cat Dad. Please go over and subscribe if you are not. He is awesome, and he is the current champion of Horror YouTube. Welcome to the Winners Club. So that's what we got coming up. The Top Kills project, up to like 800. I just couldn't bring myself to keep editing it like for a bit, so I've been taking a break from editing that. But that'll hopefully be premiered, all 1,000 kills, the night of 1,000 horror kills, for hopefully sometime at the end of this month. So a lot of fun stuff coming up, but this is getting long enough. But all right, guys, hope everyone's having a great morning, afternoon, or night. Take care, everybody. They are the Cosmic Chronicles. And then right after that, you see a little Russell. Oh, I love when Bo's watching Dexter's Modern Life. And Graham comes in. Dexter's Modern Life? It's fucking Dexter, man. Come on. You grew up with Nickelodeon. I love when Bo is watching Dexter. Laboratory. That's the name, Dexter's Laboratory. Until he's actually sees what happens and is presented with evidence to, relight the fire. Are they talking about an ancient solution, as it's something that hasn't been around since ancient times? But it can't be. It's water, so it's always... Just again, I want to give a big thanks to the Cosmic, whatever your names are.